Exodus. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God, and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied." And from the 15th chapter of John, the Lord said, "If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friend if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything I have learned from my Father I have made known to you." May the Lord add his blessing to the reading, the hearing, the understanding, and the living of his holy word. As we think of Veterans Day and celebrating those who have served and celebrating all who live lives of usefulness, I'm reminded of last week using the term from the Buddhist tradition, right livelihood. And right livelihood has to do with how we spend our time making our living, providing for our families, and the rightness of it is in its usefulness to others, but also the way in which we find joy in it. The Lord spoke of finding joy in ourselves through being in him. It's 11 o'clock, and all around the world today, the bell is being rung 11 times for the veterans of World War I. Please join with me in a moment of silence and bell ringing in their honor. Now we will continue making new reasons to be honored in the future for our efforts to be useful in all the many ways that we are. How we spend our time and our energy, whether at home or in the military services abroad, however we are bringing together our love for God and one another, our understanding of the importance of the freedoms that God gives us, and the importance of standing up to what is wrong. When we can do what we feel is right and also find great joy in it, there's a lovely little part of a poem from Robert Frost where he states, "My goal in life is to unite my avocation with my vocation, as my two eyes make one in sight." That we might do what we need to do to earn a living, but also what gives us joy. What we would do, an avocation is what we would do because we just love doing it. When we can do that as our vocation, it makes one as our two eyes make one sight. When we are doing what we love and finding meaning in that, and certainly all of the examples that we gave, that the children spoke of, people we meet every day who we might just kind of think they're just doing their job, but how many bus drivers have you run into who care about their kids? When a kid is sick for a few days, they're so glad to see them back. And people put their heart into their job, no matter what it is. You can put your heart into it. And one of the things that drew me to the passage from Exodus about Moses being directed by his father-in-law is that sometimes we think we can do everything. We take on more than we can handle. And that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help us because we wear ourselves out. But it also doesn't allow other people to partake and participate in being of service too. And when Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, says to him that he's got to get advisors and counselors and judges, he's telling him, not just delegate so you'll not work so hard, empower them. Give them responsibility and authority so that they might all be participating in loving the people and governing them. They share the load. It makes each person's life easier, but it also empowers those who may not have felt they could offer something. Often when someone is down, they're feeling they don't know what the meaning of life is, they don't know why they're here, if they can simply help someone else, they can find that meaning. They can find that meaning in getting outside of themselves to offer something that they know or feel, that serving another sometimes helps to serve us. It's finding the joy of God in one another's joy. And Swedenborg describes that as love. Love is finding the joy of another in oneself. Being happy in our own hearts because someone else has found joy. Now, as we talked about just very few examples of people in the community who help others every day, I think about in our country, in our communities, in our cities and towns, that we have both a public sector, people who are involved in public duties and responsibilities, and a private sector, and also a home front. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ways that we can serve in those different places. But I'd like to first read to you a quote from Swedenborg, which its title in itself is intriguing. The title of this paragraph is "It is not so hard to lead a heaven-bound life as people think it is." And this is what he writes. "If we would accept heaven's life, we need by all means to live in the world and to participate in its duties and affairs. In this way, we accept a spiritual life by means of our moral and civic life, and there is no other way a spiritual life can be formed within us. No other way our spirits can be prepared for heaven. This is because living an inner life and not an outer one at the same time is like living in a house that has no foundation, that gradually either settles or develops gaping cracks or totters until it collapses. So it is important for us to outwardly lead a moral and civic life, but inwardly that is actually building our spiritual life. And this is the combination of our love and our work. That the inner life within us, and sometimes it works from the inside out, sometimes from the outside in. Have you ever tried something you didn't know if you'd like doing it, and then you realized that was great, and you want to do more of that? You did the outward, and then the inner love came forth? I found that out about sledding last winter with my grandchildren. I hadn't been sledding in 20 years. I went down that hill, I'm like, man, I gotta get more of this. This is great fun. So the outward led the inner love. Other times, we really want to do something, and we try it, And by trying and practicing, we can get better and better at it. And we might want to try something we've never done before. And sometimes in a community where there are loving and helpful people, you could find others who could teach you. When I was in Pennsylvania, I once made the comment to a lady older than myself and said something about, well, when I got to heaven, I wanted to learn how to sail. And she said, oh, honey, you don't have to wait that long. I'll take you. And she took me sailing. So there's a lot of things you can want that other people can help us to achieve. But most often, people in the community doing the jobs as we talked about there, being part of the public sector particularly, teachers in public schools, your mail person, police figures, firefighters, EMTs, the public works department, librarians, and most importantly, for us to remember, our public officials who we elect. These are all people who we hope and pray are leading an inner spiritual life while outwardly performing their duties so that they are both receiving the joy of doing their love while they also participate in the joy of helping another. Mr. Rogers famously spoke of, in crisis, if you look for the helpers, you'll know there's hope. And that really touches a lot of what we need to know about helping. Is that no matter what happens in life, when there are helpers, when there are policemen who come to the rescue, when the bus comes to pick you up for school and you get there on time, when people are participating and helping others, there is hope for the world. There's hope for that particular situation. There's hope in the activity itself. Many people who work in the public sector are called to their jobs. They feel that this is how they can be of service. My nephew is an EMT, and he had a terrible time getting through high school, but all of a sudden he was in EMT training, and I realized he has the personality for that. He can handle crisis. What a wonderful thing to discover about yourself as a young person, when you find there's some things you're not good at, and then you find something that you can be of service at that really helps people. We all have an opportunity in many ways to be part of our public sector. When we are out in public, being polite to people, helping traffic flow smoothly, being useful in helping other people when they're confused, reaching the high shelf for the short person in the grocery store. There's so many ways that when we're out in public, we are part of that public sector, and we can find right in front of us ways to help people. And I hope that when you find those opportunities, you take them and see the smile on another person's face when you give them a hand. Enjoy the repartee with the cashier as you're leaving and treating them like a real person and not just a machine checking out your groceries. We are all the public. The private sector is identified by people who are just being paid for what they do, but not necessarily elected to or working for a governmental body. But there are many, many helpers in the private sector. And I think, first of all, because I work in the medical community of doctors and nurses and chaplains, and I want to give a ring out for CNAs. CNAs are doing such a lot of work with people who need it. They are wonderful people. Lawyers, store clerks, hairdressers, news reporters, the tech people that you call when your computer doesn't work, people who do manufacturing and service positions. There are so many ways that people are serving while making a living and helping with the business that they're a part of. But it's all in finding your love in your job is about how you do it, not what you do. With people who do phone support, I have to say, I can't think that they hear very many positive things, because usually people are calling with a problem. So whenever I get public tech support or any kind of help on the telephone, at the end I ask if I could speak to their supervisor. And at first they're alarmed, thinking, what did I do wrong? I said, no, I want to tell them what a good job you did. Because they don't get that positive feedback very often, and it's a really important thing that we offer positive response to the ways people help us. Always saying thank you. Always making sure that you treat them like a person. when you do what you love, it's not necessarily going to be a traditional gender role model. I'm lucky enough to come into ministry later in the decades where it wasn't unusual for women to become ministers, but that was a first at one time. There are many things that we do in life, in our jobs, that are not necessarily something that has been done by women or young people or older people, and breaking those boundaries of who can do what is an important part of, I think, what's going on in the world today. We are much more open-minded. I went to a store, I think I was just buying gas, and the gentleman who was at the register was very elderly, and I was kind of surprised. I thought, wait a minute, he has a perfect right to work here. What am I thinking that he's too old to be at this job? Yeah, he has a job and he did it fine. We need to reframe our thinking about who can do what. And I think of this particularly in the area of the home front, where we serve our families. As many of you know, I don't cook. I obviously eat. My husband likes to cook. This is fine. I like to fix things, so I do that part of our home life. Everybody has to be involved in making life work. So there are people in the world who like or are regularly doing the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, the shopping, the organizing, the finances, the fixing, the upkeep, and in some families, elder care, and some families, child care. All these things have to happen. Who loves it most should be who gets to do it. And then if there's something that nobody likes to do, you take turns. It's important for us to find ways to live our lives where we are finding our love in the simplest of things. And I know I've shared this before, but when we lived in Maine, we didn't have a dishwasher, and I was really glad. My kids were little. And if I stood at the sink with sudsy water, guess what? Nobody bothered me, because they knew I'd ask them to help. So I really took a long time washing those dishes. Stood in front of the sink, had my quiet time, scrubbed the plates. We all need to discover where our love can serve others, and we can be served by having the opportunity to do that. And we need to be honest about how we feel. We need to I know many people, these days it's hard after having had wars that were disputed and service for our country that was both difficult and rejected by a lot of people who didn't believe in the war. But think about World War I and World War II. There was a clear unity in the country that this was important service. And people who did that service were respected and honored. And it's very difficult, especially I think veterans from the Vietnam War and the Korean War perhaps, that they didn't get that kind of welcome and honor when they returned. Important to remember that those people did what they thought was right, whether we thought it was right or not, no matter what anybody else thought. When somebody does something where they are putting you, citizens of this country, ahead of their own lives, that is a huge sacrifice. And that is loving as Jesus loves. And we need to remember that. We're at a difficult time now, politically, just to say that there's some question about why some people want to serve. And we need to look at the people who are serving from their hearts, from their belief that they're doing the right thing. Even if we disagree with them, we need to look to that spark within, that love for others that does come through. And I'm going to read one last quote from Swedenborg from Heaven and Hell. People who are involved in civic affairs are the ones who love their country and its welfare more than their own, who behaved honestly and fairly out of a love for what is honest and fair. To the extent that they sought out laws of justice because of the urging of this love, and thereby became discerning, they enjoyed the ability to fill governing offices in heaven. They perform these duties in the place or on the level appropriate to their discernment, which in turn is equivalent to their love. So in the days ahead, as things unfold, Just like Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. And those in public service, look to the loves. Look to see what's really this person is showing that they love. And maybe it's not the same things that you love, but knowing that love is what guides us, what inspires us, and what gives us energy. If a love is for, in any way, something outside of that person, a community, a country, something they stand for, that is a heavenly love. If the love that they're expressing is for themselves and their own gain and dominating over others, well, as we know, Swedenborg said, that's the inversion of the loves. The love of self should be appropriately at the bottom, and the love of God at the top, and in between the loves of the world and the love of others. But when we invert those loves and the love of self is on the top, there's no way God can get in. And the service that people provide, if it is done with love, please thank them. Show them that you see that in them. You see that caring and that concern, and that you want to encourage them, because the more we encourage the good loves that are being acted out in the world, the more we're taking a stand for what is right. And the selfishness, hopefully, I have this strange image that somehow selfishness will go out of fashion. I don't know when that will happen, but it would be nice. It would be nice if we could all think about how much joy we get from loving one another, and let that be what guides us, because that is what the Lord's asking us to do. Love one another. I'd like to just leave a minute or two. If anybody would like to share any kind of service that they do, that they get a lot of joy out of. I know some of you are involved in things that you get a lot of meaning out of. I want to lift those up, just as the ones on the board. Alrighty. Susan.
I'll say my old people, of course, and my grandchildren.
Take care of the old people and the grandchildren.
Yeah, I go from a 92-year-old to a 2-year-old. Now a baby. But yeah, the old people, when you do things for them that are regular things, like getting them breakfast, or helping them get dressed, and little things they can't do, when they look up at you when you leave and say, "Thank you so much."
Yeah.
You have a nice day. You're just so cute, and they're so thankful for simple things.
They bless you just as you bless them.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And trying to help the daughters with the children now, that's a wonderful thing too. I get tired though. I'm getting old. 2 or 3 hours and I'm like, oh, but seeing, Carrie or Christine say thank you, Mom, that means a lot. So,
Amen.
yeah.
Anyone else have something that they're doing that serves others that they're getting a lot out of? Kelly?
Well, I do actually work at the same place as Susan. So I have clients that are somewhat independent but need some help. But I've recently started doing hospice clients, and I don't know if I'm getting more out of it than they are, but just knowing that I can help them however they need it, and to be there for their family members gives me a lot of satisfaction that I'm helping them.
And as you know, I work in hospice too, and one of the things that I think, I've said this to almost every volunteer I run into, just to say, remember, the greatest thing you give them is just being there, because you're showing them you're not afraid. And sometimes they are. So they need someone who's not afraid. And thank you for doing that work.